All right, here we go. Plotting your path. So the overview of today, we're going to go into discovering pathways and what the meaning of the projects are, and also known as the transcript. Now, for many of you may have seen that transcript. It is kind of motivational in a way, and it kind of gives you an idea of how far along you are in pathways. We're going to talk a little bit about that today to allow yourself kind of a big bird's eye view of your whole path and where you're going to go from there. We're also going to talk about how you can focus on your speeches by using the little personal experience. And again, this is just one perspective. There are many perspectives along the way that help you get through doing speeches. I'm just going to share a little bit about what has worked for me, and pathways being the only thing I've known in Toastmasters since I joined 2 years ago. And it really has been fun. And that's a real thing, which leads me into my third point. Find a fun way to just have a good time with your speeches. You can make pathways work for you. Everybody's different when it comes to creating their path to get through pathways. So we're going to talk a little bit about the fun ways and how you can give speeches. And then finally, at the end, I'm going to talk about how to outline. And it's real important that you outline and not overdo it. There's a lot of folks, and again, another perspective. This is, again, I'm just facilitating a little discussion here just to kind of give you maybe another pointer or two if you're kind of stuck along the way. But again, it's really important though, as long as you do, and I see in the chat, let me add that link again here. See if that got through. Okay, there we go. Let's see if we'll try that again. All right, cool. Again, then in the outline though, just remember that I'm going to show you one way that I've also prepared for speeches. And it's kept it really, really concise. And it's allowed you to do more talking of the content, but keeping your ideas all together. So we're going to talk about those 4 things today. I hope you take a little bit away that, and if you're already doing some of those things, hopefully it's working great for you. But if it's not, then maybe this will be another little pointer to help you along your journey. So we're going to go into those today. And looks like, oh, here we go. There we go. Now we're down. So let's talk about discovering pathways and how we're going to look at what the projects can do and a little bit about that transcript. So when you discover pathways, it's real important to know that, and this is kind of the theme of D25 this year, is running your marathon. Pathways is a marathon. It's again, everybody is running your own race, really. You pick how fast you want to go through it. But there's a lot of key things that allow you to excel through the program. And again, we have so many resources on D25 alone just to get you started. But today is definitely just giving you another perspective. And the importance of doing those projects. Why is that important? Because these projects in pathways will hone in on lots of different skills. And we'll talk about a little bit more in a minute. But if you do the projects, you will actually be able to take that stuff that they give you and really emphasize that in your speeches. They really want to hone in on the skills for that. And then you can create that content to allow it to be your own, your experiences, which will be more stuff later. Get yourself in a rhythm. Find a pace that works for you. Because really, when you get into doing speeches, you want to find something. You want to kind of keep a rhythm of what you're doing. If you want to do it once a month, then great. Pick something once a month and try to do a speech on that to keep yourself going through the program. Rhythm is important. And again, life happens. We get it. I totally get it too. Now, I've had plenty of things happen as well. But get yourself a rhythm. Allow yourself to have a good time along the way, which leads me to having fun. That 3-letter word, and I tell this to my own local club at Grand Orators a lot. You have to have fun. We're there to improve our skills and also to learn about ourselves as well. If you're not having fun, why are you there? We got to have fun in pathways. In order to get to the program, little small goals to help you get through, you will get there. But you got to make a path for yourself and have fun. Discovering pathways. And like I say, when you talk about the projects, when you do a project, they give you sometimes a video of what they're trying to say. And they hone in on those aspects of your journey. You will then also discover little elements along the way. Sometimes a nerve will hit like, I have never been good at that, or I have really been great at that. But these projects are important. Some of them are kind of corny, but other ones are really good. And you do want to remember that don't skip them. I really recommend not skipping the projects and just going directly to the speech. At first I was thinking, these are all probably just, I probably know all of this stuff already. Honestly, it was very, very enlightening to see some of the things that they presented, because when you start developing a little bit to know what skill, your strengths and weaknesses really. If you're able to get some of these skills and then apply those to your speeches, which is really one of the points of Pathways, you really start learning about yourself and learning what you can do. And in my first path around level 3, one little story I'll tell you is that I remember when I started I was doing leadership development as my first path, and probably was around level 3 that I started discovering that there was a lot of things that I just did not understand about myself. And when I started doing these projects, some kind of light bulb started clicking in. I was like, whoa. And my favorite word, wow, I use it a lot of times in my club meetings as well. But it is true. There are a lot of wow moments when you get into Pathways. You start learning about how, when you get into the text, and then you talk about vocal variety. It's so important. I stress that. It's important to have vocal variety in your speeches. And then for me, I had a real hard time with gestures. I'm still working into it to this day. But the speeches sometimes will emphasize a little bit about gestures. And they'll also emphasize about trying to take the eye contact, and also, making contact with the audience all the way through. But those little aspects that they teach you are very important in your progress in Pathways. One thing too, the second point here, level 1 and level 2. Think about, if you remember college a little bit, they have all these core curriculum classes, okay? And in those, level 1 and level 2 are pretty identical all the way across Pathways. They use kind of the same principle there. You'll do the icebreaker, and then you'll also do a research and then another evaluation. And those right there, they have that same format as you go through the paths, and they're kind of your core projects that you started in every path. From there, though, you get in a little further into Pathways, you'll then discover that level 3, level 4, level 5 really start opening up the doors to what it can be in that path. Pretty exciting stuff. And when you go through level 1 and level 2, keep an open mind. And again, what I stress to you is it's important to make sure that you go through the lessons, each of these projects. They're all very, very important, and they have a different aspect that they try to hone in on. But those experiences I've had going through Pathways, I really haven't tried to do the same thing, go through the projects, make some notes along the way too about maybe some of my weaknesses and maybe even some of my strengths too, and applying those to these speeches. And as you get further along in Pathways, things will open up. And it's a different pace for everybody. But for once you get along in the program, you will start learning about yourself, and it will be able to apply some of these skills that they have honed in on. It's really incredible projects. They really are. They're not that bad. And I think as you go through your journey, I think you'll discover a lot about, the potential that you can do, with your speeches and in your general daily life too. It's very, very awesome. Then we talk about the transcript. Now, show of hands, how many of y'all have actually seen the transcript in Pathways? Okay. So that's good. Because the transcript really is, you gotta know this again as kind of a motivation during your journey. If you remember, a transcript is really what it is. It's like you had in college a list of the classes that you actually took. Well, this is no different really. This takes you your path, and you're able to see everything you've done, as well as all the other lessons that are available to you. But again, it's kind of a motivation along your journey. You can kind of check off the list as you go. It does seem kind of long at the beginning, but for me, it was like, okay, I made it through the first one, and that was kind of fun. Let's see what the next one will do. And then just kind of, again, get that rhythm and finding something fun, looking at the projects as if, I want to take something away, where I can apply it to this next speech. But the transcript is one thing you get to know, and we're actually going to see it live in just a little bit on how when you go into pathways, you'll actually see, how where to go and where you will able to keep track of how your progress has been along your pathways path. So now let me go ahead and switch screens here, and I'm going to go ahead and we're going to go on to pathways real quick. Let me share screen with the. Here we go. All right, show of hands, everybody can see my screen okay with pathways? Excellent, excellent. So right now we're gonna go into Basecamp here with our pathways projects. So when you go in, you go on to the main page of Toastmasters International, you'll go to your profile, and then you will now go into Basecamp. And this should be pretty familiar, although I love the enhancements that they have done with pathways. It's much bigger buttons, much easier to kind of see where you're going to need to go. I like what they've done so far. I know they're still probably making a lot of enhancements as they go, but so far so good. But I do like the three main areas here that we've got with pathways and paths and learning, evaluations, and tutorials. But this first button is the main one we want to look at, and that is the education transcript, which takes you in to your path. And it gives you kind of a menu of what you've done, and all the current stuff that is active will show up right here. You can also look back at everything you have done before, which is archived. So you can actually see everything before, and when things that have been completed, like a previous path or something, that can be found as well. But it defaults to active, so you will see that right here on your main page. One thing, though, you have right here is the presentation mastery, which is the one I'm working on my second path. When you click on that, it will take you in to the main homepage for the presentation mastery. Now, what we can do, we can actually drill in and we can see the program. This is the stuff that we have in level 1. It kind of gives you the start of it. But if you actually click on this little arrow right below the open curriculum, you can actually view training details. This right here is the transcript. And yes, it is very daunting to start, but what I can say is, and I'm making this a little bit bigger, you can see here, though, that it breaks down all of the stuff that you're able to do. And it does tell you how many are required for your path. For each of those levels, how many are required. And you go through, and then can be very motivational for you. You can go in and see all that you have. You can actually get yourself you have lots of choices, especially when you get to level 3 through 5. You have some choices to make on whether or not, which path electives and the actual required project you want to do. So there's a lot of great options, and there's lots of great projects here that I've actually really enjoyed. But the transcript really is nice, though. It gives you a little motivation to see where you're at. And again, remember, when you go on here, each of these are, again, lots of these things are new to a lot of people. Don't feel like, and I recommend and challenge you to try something you may have not done already. It is important that when you go in these projects, go in, make sure they also give you an evaluation at the beginning of the project. Make sure to do it. Be honest with yourself. Don't necessarily put the 5s on there thinking, oh, I know this, I know this, I know this. Be real with yourself. And know when you go in to do these actual evaluations at the beginning, really honestly say, do you really know this stuff going in? Because honestly, there's a lot of them I did not know a lot about going in. And when I go with the project, I'm kind of glad that I started out saying, I don't know this stuff. I want to learn this. But they give you that evaluation at the beginning, and then in the middle, you go through and actually do the project. You then go, and then the third thing is then you schedule that speech, and then do the end evaluation. And that end evaluation is very, very crucial to completing your project. You definitely want to do those. In order to move on, you need to take that evaluation and be honest with yourself if you've really taken the whole project, very seriously, and if you've gained something from it. Because these projects, a lot of them are very, very unique in their own way. And you do want to be honest with yourself when you do these projects and then do that final evaluation. Like you see here, there are so many options. Every one of these paths, and once you get through level 3, a lot of these will change up a little bit. And you get a lot of different options for yourself to take some different projects that you may have not done before. So like again, this again is where you can find the transcript. And again, going back, let me go back again to show you where that was. And let me zoom back out again. Here we go. So again, let's go back to the home here. Again, how to get the transcript, you will go to Paths and Learning, the education transcript. And then you can, and shortly you can actually go right here to view training details, right below open curriculum. And this will take you there to your transcript. I highly recommend to take a look at this while you're on your journey. And just remember, find something fun and get a rhythm going. That's so important. Okay, so right now I'm going to go back to our screen, back to the presentation real quick, so we can keep on moving forward here. Like I say though, when you go into and kind of again the visual, seeing it live, and also kind of going through real quickly and briefly, from that TI main page on your profile, you'll want to go to the Basecamp part and hit the go button, which will take you to Basecamp Manager. And then, like I say, you saw the view training details. And again, you can see, you can then go, and if you already know your path and want to go on to your actual project, you can open the curriculum and then go to your project. That's very important as well. But if you need to see where you're at in the process, that view training details will show the transcript. Very, very important. And it is the key to seeing your overall progress in your path, whatever path you're doing. And see, again, highlighting here, the highlighting of the transcript. You then see, just an example of the level 3, you have all of these things right laid down here. When you start a project, you're going to see in here that until you're ready to start it, you can then activate it, okay? See, a lot of these projects here, and I'm actually shocked that it got lined up as it did. And it's a little bit blurred, but I think just to kind of give you an overview, when you do register for one of these projects, it's going to then show that it's activated. It'll say launch actually right next to it, the ones that you want to do. And then you can click launch and it will actually launch you into the project. And then your statuses again will show, whether it's completed or not. And again, when you get these done, this is where on the transcript, you will then be able to see where your progress is. It's a very helpful tool. It really is. And for me, again, another story for me is that I started out doing these projects, and I literally looked at this transcript, and I'm like, and my jaw really just dropped at the beginning, thinking, whoa, do I have all of this to do? And I almost got discouraged at one point. It actually, I took an afternoon and I was thinking, I really started reading through this stuff, and I was like, how am I going to get through this? How am I really going to get these projects, get through these projects, speak, and then do all of this and move and progress through this program? Well, a lot of things, again, it goes back again to what works for you. And for me, I really did have to do a little searching on, finding something that would work for me. Life gets in the way, everybody. Life does get in the way. And you get a rhythm, and for me, it hurt when you get a rhythm and something happens and it slows you down. And it happens to all of us. One thing, though, it reminded me of is that if you have fun and you make these projects, worth it for you, and you go through this and realize that every chance I get to go on into that stage or to that platform where at the lectern and give that speech, it just makes me a little bit better than I was yesterday. Find something that works for you. It doesn't matter, and there's no right or wrong, because in the end, you're going to be the winner all along because you work at it. You're working at it to make yourself better. And for me, that was a tough thing at the beginning. And once I found that rhythm, then I just keep repeating it. Basically, get that program or get the project done, get to that speech, and then get it evaluated, and then learn from that and move to that next speech. And once you start getting that, you can't lose. You will continue to make yourself better. And I've really have enjoyed Pathways, and it's the only thing I know. I never did anything in the old program, but what I can say for those that are just starting in Pathways, it's important to make it work for you and try some stuff. Try many things that don't worry about it. Just remember it's a marathon. If you're able, you know that there's an end goal. If you're able to find yourself a rhythm, then you will do fine. And sometimes you have to tweak it. There's nothing wrong with that. But find something that works for you, and use this transcript that you see here as a motivation. There is the end. When you get over that bridge, how great that's going to be. You're on the road to a DTM. You really are. Just stick with it, and have your club members help you get that support system. It's a safe zone, and again, your clubs are safe zones. Get the feedback. It's so important as you go through these projects. Again, it's a great program, and that's why I just love sharing about this and just really enjoying what it has done to transform myself, which I've seen in just a little over a year. I don't feel like the same person I was. Now our club is getting close to 2 years old, and I still don't realize how much I've come in about a year and a half. It's pretty transformational. I love it. But again, keep in mind what that transcript can do for you, and get yourself a rhythm to make it through that path. It got off my thing. There we go. One other point I want to show you about Pathways, and I just want to highlight this. One thing that Toastmasters International has done is allow you to see all the paths, all of your level 1 through 5 now, and actually see the projects and be able to continue on. Now, you can't progress until you get those projects done, but you can at least view them, which is really cool. And one thing I have looked at is they've done a great job to be able to break it all up. And I love the format they've done, because when you look up here on the screen, they actually highlight your path, they highlight your actual project for you that you've done. And once you complete it, you get a nice little check mark box, which is kind of cool. And it kind of gives you, again, you can see right here in the middle, it tells you your progress as you go, and including the elective projects that you've done. It will keep track of that for you. If you wanted a bigger picture of that transcript, this is it. You can see these kind of level by level in this path. But if you want to see the big picture like we just saw, that's where that transcript really comes into play. But every time you go through these projects, do that evaluation, do the project, and then do your speech, and finish up with that end evaluation. You really will take a lot away. You'll really see how that project worked for you, and be very honest with yourself. And once you complete that project, you then will see something like this at the end, where you will be able to complete it and get one of those nice little check marks. And I can't tell you how exciting that is, and especially early on. And they've made a few enhancements since then. But getting through the project and seeing just that I completed it, very, very exciting. Matter of fact, I was jumping up and down that first one. It was so fun to see what I did, that level 1, getting that icebreaker done. Oh my goodness. And a lot of my fellow club members at Grand Orators will tell, I had 18 ums in that first speech. A couple of people were there for that I know that alone was actually motivational to me to do better. And when you go through these projects, it's a huge mark of accomplishment whenever you get through a project. You continue on with the next one. Don't stop, because you're going to continue to see progress being made in yourself. Give yourself a chance. Keep an open mind. When you go through that Pathways project, all of them hone in on something different. I kind of stressed that before. You're going to take something away in each of these projects and apply that to that speech. Make that speech a personal experience if you can, because you could tell it best. You're the best marketer of yourself. And when if you do that, you're able to, a lot of times will actually make it through your 5 to 7 minutes pretty well. But keep in mind though, take those personal experiences And it also shares a little bit about you, and it helps your club members or your audience and your general audience in this case learn a bit more about you. But you can tell those stories best if it was a personal experience, and not always, it doesn't always have to be. But if you're able to, try to make it that way. And I think you'll have fun along. It'll also make it more fun too along your journey. But just want to highlight this. This is again another view of how you can do pathways. You can see it in a bigger passion by the bigger format by the level, just like you're seeing on this page. And again, take away that when you get a check mark, that's a huge victory. It's a huge victory, and you just keep moving on. Stay motivated with your curriculum progress, like you see here. The speech preparation perspectives. Okay, I'm going to shift gears just a little bit. And again, I've stress in this presentation that this is just a perspective. This is just my perspective. There's so many perspectives out there, but I just want to share something that's helped me a lot. Again, focus on building your speeches around that personal experience like I mentioned. You're the best at telling the stories that have impacted you, whether they're good, whether they're sad, whether they're roller coaster moments, if you want to call it that, highs and lows along the way. You're the one that best tells the story. An audience loves stories. I have learned that the hard way by not doing that right early on, after I started realizing that if I tell my passion, I have so much fun up there. I've actually have loved the platform now because you make it your own. Have fun with it. You continue to work on those skills as you go through these projects. You will likely fill that 5 to 7 minutes pretty much all the way through if you have a personal experience, because you tell it best. Because it's content that you want to share along the way. Just a few things I just wanted to share with you on. And then I want to talk about outlining. Now, one of the things I want to show you too, and this is just something, again, that's helped me do well with the Pathways program. I want to share with you real quick a little picture. Let me see if it pulls up here. Yeah, here we go. Let's see. Oh, it all disappeared. Where am I here? There we go. All right, so let's look at this right here. Everybody raise your hand, you can see that okay? Okay, super. This right here is my outline. I have put together, I've actually gotten into doing fillable PDF forms now, what I use for all of my speeches, because speeches are pretty much going to be consistent. You're going to go through the program, you're going to do a speech. Do your project, go do a speech. Why not build a template? That's kind of how I look at this. It's like, it's almost kind of a process as I go. And what I've done is I've basically made it where I have my 3 ideas, and we'll be talking about this thing in just a second. But I've used this as a template for me and I have kind of the top portion of it, the date, name, topic, and program are all kind of consistent. They'll be the same thing. The only thing they'll change is probably the level once I do speeches along the way. But this is what I do I follow my speeches just using this form, and I can go back to them later on if I need to go do another speech. But taking, like I said, keeping it very simple, using an outline just the ideas, and using those as your highlights of your presentation, not to write everything all the way down and read it verbatim, because sometimes you run out of time with that. If you stay concise with the 3 things that you want to do, you will tell the content so much easier at the end. But this is, again, just a perspective that I've had, and it's worked really well for me. I've been able to keep my speeches actually within time, because I used to ramble on really early on if I didn't have an outline. I actually wrote everything out, and it didn't work for me. It was actually actually something I really discovered about myself, that I was writing too much down. And it slowed me down very much, and I actually got very discouraged about it. Don't get discouraged, but you can do this. Anybody, you have to find what works for you. This is, again, just one way I did it. And what I also did, just to kind of show you a little bit more, a lot of the speeches also ask for, if you're doing you're citing references as well. I've included, a place for the body to put my main points in here. I've had the ability to go in and add my conclusion area. So this is a file that I can keep, and then I can go back and look back at it and make it a speech. Kind of almost the way of looking at it, I use it as the most important things up front, and then I use the speech ideas first, and then at the end I do the conclusion and introduction. And those are the easiest of all for what I found out. I can't do an introduction and conclusion unless I know what my content's going to be. So I use that at the end, and after I got my points in there, I'm able to use it as I'm able to put in my conclusion and my introduction very, very nicely. And just, again, very briefly, because you're not going to have a whole lot of time. You have 5 to 7 minutes to do it on a regular speech. So it's important that you have a format to kind of follow. And then I have a section here for sources, citations, and any other notes that I have. But this is what's worked for me. It's very simple. It's been a blueprint to help me get through speeches. Because I've now been able to replicate it. I've been able to use this for every speech. And then I'm also able to go back after I save them. I save these so I can go back to my notes later. And it's been a very, very, very helpful for my progress through pathways. And whatever works for you, you find a way that works for you. That's what's important. But that just wanted to show that this is one way that you can do a very simple outline to help you get your ideas across and build yourself up a little file of all your speeches. Just to keep that in mind, this again is just a little note of outlines. Okay, so again, that's just one little aspect of outlining. So you don't have to overdo it. Just find something that works for you that allow yourself to make a concise speech. You saw on there was 3 ideas. Number 1, you have the use of rule of 3. And my club mentor who is on here today, Mr. Chuck, actually taught me a little bit about rule of 3, and it has helped ever since day 1. And it is such a good guide to allow yourself to get your thoughts organized and go forward making a concise speech. But the rule of 3 for speeches is a wonderful guide, and it helps you. It does help you keep your speech down to that 5 to 7 minutes for the most part, because you do have to you have enough time to highlight your points all together, involving an introduction and a conclusion. Very, very important though. Use this as a rule of 3. Use those for get 3 ideas, because you're really not going to have a whole lot of time to get more ideas after that. But kind of keep that to 3 powerful ideas to talk about, and then add your intro and conclusion. Those ideas also presented in 3s are inherently usually more interesting, more enjoyable, and also more memorable. I talked earlier about how that personal experience will really enhance your presentation. Because if it is a personal experience, a lot of times somebody doesn't know a lot about you, and you're actually sharing that, it becomes a little bit more interesting, like we talk about. It becomes enjoyable because they may relate to it. And if they relate to it, they get engaged in the actual speech. And in time, it also becomes more memorable because those folks may have had that same experience or something very similar to that. But the ideas that are presented in 3s, that's how they remember a lot of your speech, because it's just enough to be able to keep it interesting and keep it concise. And one thing too, when you do this outline and you put these in here, it really becomes helpful when you're able to break in between your speeches. You're able to then have what they call the vocal pauses to help you separate a little bit of that first point to the second point. It took me a long time. It took me probably close to the end of that first path to realize that if you don't take that pause between points, the audience wants to be able to take that in. It gives you kind of that breaking point and allows you to move to the next thing. And wow, I didn't really get that until after I got done with my first path, and it took a while. I now realize that when you do that, when you have that break, and you have that pause in there, you're able to then shift into another portion of your presentation. So vocal pauses really do help when you use the rule of 3. It allows you to kind of break that up along the way. I love that. It's so much fun. It really is. If you find it working for you, you can really make it fun for yourself. It's so great. But again, outline. Do not overdo it. Find something that works for you to keep it concise, and I think you'll be a winner either way. Well, in wrapping up, we're kind of getting near the end of our presentation here. In pathways, let me finalize what our last thoughts here. In discovering pathways, we talked about how the meaning of those projects really do help you understand what to hone in on those speeches. You can, if you do start out by looking at doing an evaluation at the beginning to see what you really know about it to begin, and finding out maybe you don't know so much about it, and then actually doing the project, which I highly recommend doing. I know I stressed that earlier. The projects overall are really, really good, and they really do hone in on lots of different elements that you probably may not already have, and you might want for the future speeches. But then when you get through it, make sure you do that evaluation at the end after your speech to really see how you've done and how you've applied that to the speech, and if it was actually helpful for you. Because also Toastmasters International wants you, they're always perfecting this. They're always wanting the feedback. And as in Toastmasters alone, we always want feedback. That's a key part. But in the projects alone, they do want to know how that's applied to you and how it worked, and if there's something they should alter in it. So take that evaluation at the end. I think you will really get a lot out of the project. It'll be even more meaning out for the project too. That transcript, can't stress enough, take a look, and there's a couple of views that we looked at today. That full-fledged view that we saw when you go in, and let me go back again for those that may have come in a little bit late. I want to show one more time. Let me get back here to the actual, well, where to go? Oh, there it goes. All right, here we go. So again, for those that may have come in just a little bit late, let me show you a little bit about what we did. When we go back into pathways, starting at the beginning, when you're at your Toastmasters International profile and then you see on there the base camp, and that blue link that was on there, you go in here to click on it and it'll take you to this main menu of pathways. And what we discovered was the transcript. If you click on that button and you see, it takes you to your actual path, what's active right now. And you can choose to go to the actual curriculum, which then will launch you into your project. Or what I also want you to see is the view training details. And that is this page here. It is very important and also very motivational. If you're getting along in the program, you can see what's left to do. And you're also able to see what choices you have in these projects, because there are a lot of great projects in here. But just remember in here, when you do these projects, keep motivated. You don't have to do all of them. You do what's required of you, and there's so many different topics that you can hone in on they're actually a lot of fun. But also try something new. Try something that you may have not actually connected with before, because there's a lot of them that are very interesting, and especially if you do other paths after you do the first one, you can also try other ones in the next pass. Very, very fun. But this is the transcript, which is a very, very important part of pathways and keeping track of where you're at in the journey. And we hope it also will keep motivated to get to that end, because you don't want to stop. You want to make sure you get all the way to the end on the way to that DTM. So I just wanted to show that real quick, because I think it's a very important step once you get going in pathways to see your progress along the way. Let me switch back here real quick to our presentation. And let's see, here we go. There it is. So again, we talk about that transcript, which is so important. I then stress a lot about how you can create speeches and base it on personal experiences. If you're able to do those personal experiences in a speech, do it. Because in the end, you're able to create that content. Pathways works real hard to hone in on the skills that will allow you to make a great speech. You put that content together, and you're the one that tells it best. And then your audience also learns about you, and also they'll be that support for you too. Because every time you're up there presenting, each one of them want you to succeed. And I can't tell you that after that first experience I had getting up on stage, how nervous I was getting up there, and then look at the audience like, oh goodness, what am I doing? And 18 months later, I remember that it was those moments that if you make sure that you're keeping your audience engaged and telling your story, it's the best speech you really could give. It really is. And I think that's helped me a lot, taking that personal experience and personal testimonies that I've had and bringing it to the audience and just sharing a little bit about me. And it's been fun. And a lot of them have been hard, and a lot of them have been exciting too. I've kind of had a mix along the way. But take those personal experiences and try to put them in your speeches if you can. The next last couple here, we had fun. Develop a fun way to get through the program, to give your speeches. Like I say, when you have fun, you start a rhythm, you get it going, and then you keep going through the program. You don't stop. It's important that even if you do start the project and you're kind of unsure how to give that speech, think of it another way as just, what can I do to kind of spice it up? How can I have fun with it? Because there's going to be some of these projects that you're probably be stumped on what exactly to write. But have fun. Just keep that three-letter word in the front of everything. Because that's what's helped me here, especially within the last few months. Was COVID, for instance. It's one of those things that it's thrown us off quite a bit, I would imagine. I would show of hands, has everybody been kind of thrown off of general rhythms? Yeah, see, I get it. It has for me too. But sometimes we have to, brick by brick, we have to start and find our path again, pun intended in this case. And we need to be able to find something that will allow us to get through the program. Speeches, for me, sometimes I have to kind of turn it around and find ways that maybe if I haven't talked about some already, maybe I can put it in a different way and just make it fun again. Because sometimes you just got to spice it up a little bit. But find a fun way to give those speeches and have fun and know that there is a bigger goal at the end of this Pathways program, and that is earning your DTM. 2 paths. If you get through one, go to that next one. And also take away what you took away from that first path and build on it. It's important in the program to build on everything that we're doing. If we're not building, we're regressing. It's really important to remember we always want to keep learning and doing something to help us improve our skills. That's why we're in Toastmasters. That's why it's so exciting to see these projects and see how I can make it even better and apply it to me and so maybe one of my experiences. Think of it that way for you too. Have fun with it. And then we finally talked about outlines. The outline is going to be different for everyone. I created you, as you saw today, I showed you a little bit about how I outline my speeches. It's different for everyone. But I did highlight a little bit about the rule of 3 and how that's important to create kind of a blueprint to make it a concise speech. If you're able to have something memorable, something that's going to be enjoyable, those kind of things help keep the audience engaged, and they also help you get through your ideas and give a concise speech at the end. But don't overdo it. Again, sometimes people will write a full speech and it works for them. That's good too. But sometimes you run out of time. And in this case, we get 5 to 7 minutes for most of our regular speeches. As you get further along in Pathways, they increase a little bit. Actually, they increase a lot, sometimes up to 10, 12 minutes, maybe even 20 minutes. But that's not the point. The point is you got to find an outline that works for you. don't find it when it works for you. Try not to overdo it and put too much text, because you're going to come up with the content. If you stick to your 3 ideas, you know, and if you stick to a personal experience as well, you will be able to tell a great speech. You have to practice though, keep practicing at it. But and that's another thing when you go through the Pathways program, each speech you build on stuff, you build on the skills. Take those skills, apply it to the next speech, and you're never done. And many of you probably know that. When you do a speech, you're never completely satisfied with the result. You're always wanting to be better. And that's one thing that Pathways has challenged me is I look at the speech, I'm like, oh, I know I did something not right in that speech, but I'm going to take that skill that I missed, and especially the feedback from the evaluations, and really go forward in trying to improve on that for the next time. Because if you ain't growing, you're dying in a way. If y'all have heard that one before, it's important to always continue to learn as you go. But again, outline, don't overdo it. All right, so we are at the conclusion of the presentation. I am going to open it up for Q&A. So, and again, we are completed, so I would love to, if there's any feedback or questions about Pathways, the floor is open to the audience.